3d6 down the line.
Meat sickles.
Right.
Meat sickles for everybody.
Wow.
So sad about Atticus. I am like, he was like the
he was
best.
such a good character.
It was brutal. I loved like just being him every once in a while. You know what I mean? The whole
Purely-
I can so
purely
clearly
out of-
see him. You know? Yeah.
Purely out of flavor, one of the best characters we've encountered, so far. I think.
Yeah.
It's a real bummer.
What was his charisma? Like a 4? That's why I made him a leper.
Yeah,
I
right?
love it. I love it.
Yeah. He's brutal.
So good.
Yeah.
And he never once made a thief check.
He tried. He tried. He
I
just,
know, but he never once made it. I never once actually rolled a thief check. And I'm not even kidding you. Like, if I had gone back to town and leveled him, both of his find traps and his like pick traps, like whatever, open locks, would have been 3 and 6, and he would have made both those fucking rolls.
What was he? What did you stack him with? What was his good skills?
You did that. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Did he favor anything?
Well, I'm afraid to pull up the character sheet right now because I closed it already.
Oh yeah, don't.
Worried my computer will crash.
That's okay.
But no, I don't think he did. It was pretty evenly distributed, and it was all like, I think everything was like 2 and 6.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I was telling Mike during the break too that I mean, it sucks that he died, but that is exactly what retainers are for, right?
I know.
You know, because if it wasn't him doing it, you guys would have attempted to do it, maybe. You know,
right?
And
I mean, certainly we wouldn't have left the chest untouched, so that would have been instant death. Yeah.
So
wow.
Well, was that trap instant death?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just instant death for him?
Save or die. Save or die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's mean.
Yeah, and that's why treasure traps are like super nasty and are basically only the bailiwick of thieves, right? Because all other trap finding is basically can be done by anybody, but those are more like room traps, like the scything blades and pit traps and stuff like that. Like the real complex shit. That's why they're so fucking nasty. You have to roll, and only a thief can do it, right?
Now, so here's a question that I have. Again, like old school gaming. I'm still pretty new at this. If that's the case, why don't we just smash open every treasure chest that we find?
Totally viable.
You break the shit that's inside.
Yeah,
that's the risk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's not fair. That'd just be mean.
There's probably arguments to be made for, being able to figure out ways to open chests with mitigating that, but that was one type of trap. But like, there's also the kind that fill up the room with poison clouds and all kinds of shit like that,
The really nasty ones are like the ones that are protected by spellcasters, which have like glyphs of warding on them, and you can't even see them. So that is
it's inside. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just invisible. It's like a visible arcane mark. And so, like, if you attempted to do it by force, by smashing, or just strength of arms, it would have just triggered it.
Right.
Yeah, and it just
Fireball.
You know what I just realized?
What's
I
up?
have the key to that chest in my bag.
What do you
I'm an
mean?
idiot.
What do you mean? You have
I have the key to that chest in my bag.
What? The key to what chest?
The treasure chest.
No,
That's one of the things that
the
Laryl Sack has. Like one of the stories that it told was how he
You could
reached
use a
in
key to anything.
and pulled out a key to the prison door that he was in.
Oh,
So we
wow.
can
Correct.
pull out specific keys.
Depends.
So I'm an
You can
idiot
try.
and I killed your guy.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It's a story. It's a story you read about. You've not attempted to verify that story yet.
I would be extremely surprised if you could pull out specific keys to doors, but that would be, So
Well,
guys,
pretty cool.
gentlemen, I will say this is not a short exit route. This is a longer exit route than the entrance we came in, and it only seems to be getting worse unless we luck into some immediate stairwell. The minute we left the developed area back into Raw Tunnel, I was worried this was never going to work out for us. So
This is the decision point to turn around. I mean, we went longer
probably
than
go
our
back to
6
the
turns.
workshop. Yeah,
Well,
I think we
okay.
probably go back to the workshop.
I know we're in the detox, but the fact that you brought that up made me realize I did make an oversight. So I'm going to drop it here in the detox, and hopefully everyone watches the detox.
Ooh, all right.
On the top of that other cliff, the one that's a little bit higher that had the handholds, you do see that there is a little bit of light showing from down that corridor, and it appears to be like a steady light of some sort. Yeah.
Could be
Yeah,
daylight.
I mean, and if we're so close that a collapsed basement is there, we've got.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We're pretty close to the surface. All right, so maybe we go a little bit further.
I forgot that your plan was actually to only go like 6. What is it? 6 turns worth?
We pushed it a
went way
little
past
far.
A little far. You guys like went way past. Yeah.
Until 10.
The thing about that though, John, is the scale of this map. You really don't cover that much territory in like one turn and 1 hour.
That's why when your stated plan was 6 turns, I told Matt, I was like, you do realize that that's only, whatever was that 1,200 feet? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
more, less. I don't know. Whatever. It just wasn't.
Okay, well, then how far do we go? 50 per square?
Yeah. So you go two squares per turn, right? So you would have gone.
We also added those turns where we were looking for tracks, right? So
12 turns, 12 squares. You would have gone 12 squares, which is 12 times 5 is 60. So 600 feet. You would have gone 600 feet.
9,
Yeah.
10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
14, 15, 16. Yeah, we're about 16, 17 turns rough.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. And the other thing I was surprised too is that you didn't bite at the bellowing male voice. I thought maybe you were feeling
really
your
that
oats.
time, dude.
Yeah.
You
There's too much going on.
2 giant fur monsters at us right away. We were like,
Yeah.
I mean,
that was that time to mourn Atticus, and then all of a sudden we're being attacked by death cows.
Good thing with that is
brutal.
that you made your surprise roll, which was good for you, because that would have been nasty.
Who made their surprise roll?
You guys succeeded at surprise.
Yeah, we weren't surprised.
You were not surprised. Yeah.
That was that roll that John said, "Oh, you don't want to roll a 1,
one or a 2." Yeah.
Jesus, that would have been brutal.
Yeah.
I was actually very surprised that we were able to kill those. I thought we were dead. Because I knew, like, when you said that they were Minotaurs, not Beastmen, I was like, okay. I'm just doing quick math in my head, and I'm just like, we're not going to live through this. I'm surprised they didn't have a multi-attack, to be honest with you.
They could if they wanted to. But I was just kind of playing it like based on what the circumstances were. So if they decide to use their weapon, which they always default to, is just one. If they don't have a weapon, they could both gore and bite at the same time, which they did attempt to do versus Njal, the one who had the brain full of spiders. But the morale is brutal. They're basically like undead in that way. Like they will never back down. And then the other nasty thing is that they actually have they hunt by smell. It's actually in the staff.
Oh, that's why that.
It's
brutal. That's like
yeah.
straight out of mythology too. That's like straight out of the maze was pitch black.
Yeah.
So the Minotaur would find you by smell. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if only I'd used that wand a little earlier.
Yeah. The use of the spell was
down that hallway. Yeah.
Well, the use of the spell, David, improved phantasmal force was genius. It was great, but it was just you literally picked the wrong monster to cast it against.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought there might. I mean, ever since we started discussing smell in the dungeon, I've been cognizant of the fact that like invisibility or illusion has like a finite or has like a soft ceiling, but I did not expect it to be that effective, right? Like I expected it maybe to get like in the range of us, which is why I was bugging you about the corpse. I was like, maybe, that'll play to our benefit. But yeah, they're literally just coming for us. I mean, that's great. It's very fun monster design.
Yeah.
The thing about your wand though, man, is it is the biggest gun in the party right now.
Oh yeah, no, I know. But I don't know how many charges it has.
Well, that's the thing is like we can't mess around with that. We have to use that arcanum to just try and top it off as soon as we can.
100%. I had a feeling it would be really useful, but I did not want to use it right out of the gate, even though that probably would have been the best move for us.
Right.
Because if it backfired or, whatever, if it's really coveted and we could have killed them easily, it would have been a waste. So
you guys got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
You should assess a lot, like the interesting things that you have, because that, as we know in old school, that's really kind of what makes you unique, right? Rather than your own abilities.
Really?
I was actually kind of surprised that when you found the hall, that you didn't take the time to actually do the little sip test with the potions, right? Tell you what they do.
Right.
But,
we should have done that. But so David, I'm really glad you killed Isocritus now, because if we had ever had that wand used on us, that would have been real bad.
Done.
And then B, you've gone from being a flying, invisible dagger dealing little bastard to the battleship Yamamoto.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using that in emergencies, and now that we know what it does, that's helpful for our.
Oh my god, hallway full of monkeys. Hallway full of monkeys.
It was cool to see you, David. Though I mean, like Anwir, like unleash like magical power and strength. You know what I mean? Like both with illusion and with offensive force as well. You know?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
But what's cool is that you never needed that. You were already awesome before without all that shit. So you know.
Hey, I'm gonna use as little magic as possible. You know that, but that was fun.
Yeah, you guys played it cool though. The battle was fun tactically too. I liked the fact that there was the stairway there, and you guys used the verticality. You used the passageways to get safe, that kind of thing, and it was cool. You did well. It was
it was a tricky and another demonstration though of kind of what we discovered when Trusty died, was that like battlefield movement is a little bit wonky in my head still. Like I'm like, okay, so David can move and now he can't move, and now if he moves he's dead, and you know, it's still a huge learning curve, even though we've had like 3 or 4 battles under our belt at this point.
Admittedly it's sorry,
go ahead, David.
Well, I asked a lot of questions because there have been so few instances in which Anwir is actually engaged in combat that I was like, okay, wait, I vaguely remember how this works, but I don't. It's very easy to get like mixed up for sure.
It's totally not your guys' fault to not have retained that information because it's and it's me as well. Sometimes I have to kind of remember. We just haven't done it that much, which is good, which means like you're being very cautious with combat. But I should say that should be your homework, is maybe just, I mean, it's all of 2 pages. Just read the spread in OSC about combat. The even though I've modified it slightly, the actual sequence is basically the same. But as you can see, I think this battle in particular, even more than the lizards, the order of phases and the way things happen and what the decisions you make with declarations really affects things, right? You could, as you were, like what, especially when it came to like Anwir's survival. Both of the spellcasters and Avaricios as well, right? Deciding whether or not to cast a spell, whether to duck, whether to move, whether to fight, retreat all the way, or just do a fighting withdrawal. That all came into play. So understanding how tactics work. Obviously, tactics are different in OSE than they are in 3E or 5E, but they are still tactics. They still have mechanical effects, and you got to really think carefully. Or, as you know, one bad mistake tactically could mean your fucking end in this game. You know what I mean?
Well, I actually think you have to think more about it than you do in 5E, because the action economy is way more restricted. I wanted to bounce my head off the desk when Avaricios wasn't able to move and cast a spell. I was just like, shit. I was like, this is the difference between healing somebody who is about to go down and saving your character, right? Totally. Like it's like, oh.
That's why, like you, Mike, I remember like Sparrowhawk and everything in 3rd edition. It's like it was always about like buffing beforehand, right? That was always what it was about. And you kind of have to think about that now as well. Like the Bless would have been great to cast before combat, but of course Matt didn't know that the combat was about to happen, right? And that's how nasty it can be. It's just like one bad surprise roll or one bad random encounter roll, and it's just like you don't even have the time.
I would lean into that by saying, like, even if it's not ostensibly a like combat as war intent, like it just shows how much preparation is reinforced by the rule system, right? Like, because once you're in combat, a lot of these decisions are made for you, and in a sense, right? And if you can prepare, or you have any sort of awareness prior, you stack the cards so much higher. Even if you're just doing pure combat, even if you're not being creative about it, and you're purely just casting bless, buffing, attacking, all these sorts of things, it behooves you to always be playing with an advantage.
A stack deck, yeah. Like if you look at the 2 past combats, like the lizards and the minotaurs, they were pound for pound relatively equal in their ability to like fuck you up, right? Yeah. But look how much easier it was to handle those lizards than it was the minotaurs, because of how much you knew they were there and how much planning you had and all that kind of stuff. It was just, I mean, the minotaur battle was awesome for its own reasons, but the lizard battle was just such a lesson in an OSR.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
It was so good. It's so good. Just how the title, you just wiped them away because you had that advantage beforehand.
Look, us not remembering us not remembering the minutia is just because we're so good at OSR play. We're just
That's what
we're so good. These things kind of slide off of us, you know. It's
combat. It's just another puzzle to be solved.
combat. What is this?
So here's the thing that I've been kind of questioning, because like this it's kind of come up, but it hasn't really, and I'm not sure like in combat with the way that the sequence runs, how this would really work. We've said a couple of times that like we've tried to move in defensive positions, right? Like I remember like with the shadows, I think, where there was some like jockeying for position with the lower AC, the squishies, right? Like the squishies were on the back. Anwir's like, oh no, you're in front, I'm in behind, right? But in the end, it kind of didn't really matter, right? And it also kind of didn't matter that like Njal kind of hung back in that fight to protect people. But I guess you can't, there's not really a mechanic that allows that to happen. Like you can't ready an action. Like you can't get back there and ready an action to attack the thing if it comes closer. So in that sense, you can't really protect people.
You can,
right?
But you have to have that's a trust thing. And if I didn't take into account, it was just a failure on my part to not understand the tactical situation. But basically, like the way I read it is like if you tell me that you're standing or protecting or you're behind someone or something like that, that basically removes you as a target, or I make you harder to hit or something like that, right?
Oh, so like if you're rolling for the targets, all the people that you're protecting would count as a roll against you.
Kind of,
like,
I would just
like
take you out of like the equation. Like when David, like in this battle, like when Anwir basically removed himself back down the corridor, he was no longer even in part of the die roll, right? Like he was not a choice to be targeted. I can't remember how that went down with the shadow fight, but if I did allow the squishies to be targeted, that was an incorrect call. It was an incorrect call on my part.
Well, I think what Matt did, though, is he said both in the shadow fight and in this fight that Njal is going to kind of interpose himself between him and whatever the target was. Now, but I think Aboricio, Matt, you were a target in the Minotaur fight. I don't remember you being a target in the shadow fight.
Yeah, it wasn't me then. And actually, I'm a pretty good person to be a target because my AC is really high.
Sure.
But yeah, it was with like Anwir and I think Codswallop was in the back also.
Yeah, I'm not talking about those, but both times
then,
you had Njal interpose himself between you and the shadows and then you and the Minotaurs.
Yeah. And like this time, like it wouldn't have made sense for him to prepare that because, we were like pressed up against the wall and stuff. Like that wouldn't have made sense. Mm-hmm. So it kind of played out in a way that made sense. But
you had backed away too, right, to cast the spell.
Yeah.
So it was basically like Njal and Goran only in the melee for a while, where they were the only targets for a while. Yeah. But yeah, it's the burden's on me. The burden's on the referee to do it right, but to be able to kind of comprehend like positioning and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's like you should definitely step in and just tell me if I forget positioning. You know what I mean? Like if you feel like you're being unfairly targeted or something like that, that's fine. But it still has to be done.
No, nothing like that. Yeah,
it still has to be done in that phase order. So you have to think like where it goes. Remember, there's declaration of moving in melee before any initiative is rolled, right? I think that oftentimes we get confused with that, where there's the declaration of movement doesn't actually occur, but you have to declare if you're moving out of melee. And then there is an actual movement phase after initiative is rolled, where you do your movement, where the movement actually occurs. And people who have not declared are still free to move wherever they want, as long as they're not locked into melee. And so in that way, you would say, like, if Njal would happen to have been, that would have been the point where if Njal was free, you could have said, like, he steps in front of Avaricios, right? And then he would not have then been a target, that sort of thing, Yeah,
and I think to your point, and we've talked about this before, is like this is, this kind of play is very cooperative, right? So it's not your job as the referee to remember this stuff. It's all of our jobs to remember and remind each other, because you're running, you've got a lot of stuff in your head too.
Yeah,
right?
It's all theater of the mind.
Saved my ass too, though. That saved my ass because when I was like, "Can I step in front of Njal?" and put my high AC in front of him, right? If I had been allowed to do that, David would have cast this Cone of Cold. If I had failed my save, I'd have been a dead dwarf. That would have been dead guy.
But I don't want my you're right, Mike, but I don't want you to take me negating that, like saying you can't do it as like a cue to never ask me to do that again, because you could certainly do that if it was your initiative and it was your move phase. You could certainly have done that. It was just that you were trying to do that when it was my turn, when it was the Minotaur's turn. Right?
No, I got that. I picked that up during the session. I understood what you were going for. Is
Okay,
I needed that to be part of the declaration phase of that whole thing.
Not even declaration. You could have just done it during your movement phase.
Right.
You could have been like, I just move to protect someone, But it just has to be done during your turn. That's all.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, learning.
Yeah.
Learning.
All right. I'm going to start editing, I suppose. I still have a whole night of work on this goddamn channel. All right.
Still fun though, right, John?
Of course, it's still fun. Yeah, I'm just joshing.